Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. But this actually isn't what this video is about. I just brought this out because it's a good sort of introduction to what I'm actually going to talk about, which is this book, Vagabond. So this is Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. As you can tell, this is a actual book, prose, and it is also a very, very beat up book, as you can tell. And why is this a beat up book? Because I have had this book since about, I believe, 2003, 2002. This is, I don't even know if this is like a first printing or something. Let me see. This was printed, blah, 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 blah. First edition. Yeah, this was printed, I believe, in 95. So this is a fairly old book, printing-wise. I have read this book many, many, many times. One of my all-time favorite novels in my collection of actual prose books, not comic books. And this book is an absolute, I would say, classic or landmark of Japanese literature. And probably one of the, if you had to know a story, like a Japanese novel story, you know, this is the one to read. This one is unapologetically Japanese. And honestly, in my opinion, when I'm in a mood for Japanese stuff, I'm not really like a weeb. I mean, I like weeb stuff, but I'm not really a weeb. When I want Japanese stuff, you know, to me, I go straight to the source and what is most Japanese. And Musashi, a name that some people might find familiar, is the ultimate story, in Japan at least. Now, enough about this. Let's actually get to what we're talking about, which is comics, right? In this case, Japanese comics, also known as manga. And right here, I'm actually here to talk about Vagabond. And this is by Takehiko Inoue. As you can see, based on the novel Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa, which is very important because if you've read the novel, then you pretty much know the plot to Vagabond. That being said, it is story and art by Takehiko Inoue. He essentially translates the prose to the appropriate manga format and pacing, you know, and which means, you know, this is manga pacing, so it's pretty slow. That being said, the chapters are very, very long, much longer than your standard manga chapters. Manga chapters typically being about 20 pages. This book, most of the chapters are about like, I think 50 or 60, sometimes even 80 pages long. But anyway, Takehiko Inoue is very famous. For those of you who aren't into manga, he made a famous sports manga called Slam Dunk. Very, very famous. He himself is a big basketball fan. He's really into basketball, and if for whatever reason you were ever into need to read a basketball comic book or manga, Slam Dunk I highly recommend. It's really, really good, and his art is fantastic. He has a very detailed style. And he goes between classic, fine pen, cross-hatching techniques to brushy stuff every now and then. He himself, like many mangaka, he uses a G pen for most of his stuff, which is essentially a crow quill pen, a Japanese-style crow quill pen. And he does a lot of brushwork too. As you can tell, this is a very violent and mature manga. The original novel is very violent and mature. But obviously not for kids, but, if you're in the mood for truly samurai things, if you're a fan of like Lone Wolf and Cub and other types of more, mature samurai type of drama, I cannot recommend Vagabond enough. It is fantastic. Basic premise of the book. Okay, so essentially, same thing as the novel. This book centers around the main character, Takezo Shimen, or as he later becomes after his trials and tribulations, Musashi is what he really becomes later on, right? So let's see, we get to the end of it, and he is reborn as, let you be known forever as Miyamoto Musashi, right? The legendary. So what I'm trying to get here, and I know I'm like 4 minutes into this kind of rambling right here, mainly because I got some other stuff I want to talk about particular printing quality. The story of Musashi is about Takezo Shimen. He basically survives a great war on the losing side with his buddy Matahachi. And they both, when you first run into him, are basically surviving a battlefield, right, with as stragglers, trying to not get, killed by roaming samurai and ronin. And they try to make it back home to to his home, which is the area or the village of Miyamoto. And the first book kind of goes over his adventures running into a mother and her daughter, Oko and Akemi, and Takezo's sort of trials, and he ends up losing Matahachi. He ends up at the village where he grew up, and Matahachi's grandma essentially accuses him of having murdered his friend Matahachi, which is why he's not there, but it's a bunch of other reasons which you have to read the book to find out. It's actually very, very good. It's good drama, very good soap opera drama if you like that kind of stuff. And Takezo was always a outcast in his village, kind of a wild child. And one of the big differences between the manga and the novel is the manga actually goes into detail about Takezo, Musashi's dad, which the novel doesn't really go into. This is kind of where Takehiko Inoue kind of comes up with his own stuff and does some other weird things again. The real historical Miyamoto Musashi, he was a real figure, had a different life than what both this novel and this manga portray. Both of these are obvious fictional dramatizations of the real Miyamoto Musashi's life. By the way, Miyamoto Musashi was the author of the Book of Five Rings, very influential philosophy book on weapon tactics and war and warrior philosophy in general, right? Very influential book. The manga, anyway, which is what we're really here for, though cannot recommend the novel as well, is your typical manga fare. It's very slow-paced, which is what manga tends to be. Art is fantastic. It's a very different type of art, I would say, than what you're used to in manga. A little more detailed, a little more, I would say, I wouldn't say like totally anatomically correct, but much more anatomically correct than your standard manga. I think Takehiko, he is much more reserved in using off-model expressions. He does it, there's certainly areas where characters express their emotions and stuff in this book in ways that are kind of like very odd and very Japanese. But he kind of stays more, I would say, more detailed, more realistic than other manga artists, which might be up your alley if that's was always what was kind of off-putting for some of you out there who may or may not like manga, right, or be really experienced with it. For me personally, the art in this book is fantastic. I remember reading this way back in the days. I remember reading Vagabond back in the early aughts, along with Berserk. Those were both when those series were really, really hot, and they were just doing, it was like cool shit every day. And this particular book, these three books, I should say, and I have three of these out here because I'm going to compare it in a little bit to a different printing. These were printed this is first printing, so this is a first print of Vagabond, by the way. I know, kind of rare, and you can see some of the rough edges. You can see like the cut here is all jacked up. It's not a clean cut. A lot of manga in the early days had this kind of problem. And printed March 2002, right? So these books right here, published by Viz, back in the day, these were printed in Canada. In fact, the majority of Viz's stuff in the olden days was printed in Canada. They were generally printing their stuff in Canada for a very long time, until recently when they started printing in China. So this Viz Big Edition Volume 1, I can do it right here to try to show you, which I'm going to try to avoid the spoiler here, which you need to see. So you can see right here, printed in China. And first printing of this Viz Big was 2008. This is a 12th printing, so a fairly new 2019. And you're probably wondering, why am I kind of babying this thing? That's because this is completely falling apart. So the Viz Big editions, for those of you guys who are curious and you wanted to buy a copy, I absolutely recommend not buying the Viz Big editions. And no, for those of you who are wondering if I manhandled this book, no, I didn't. I literally read this Viz Big edition one time and it fell apart at the seams. And I need to remind people out there that think perfect binding is amazing and, oh, why can't all American comics do what manga does? This is why saddle stitching will never die, because it is so simple and so basic that you can't have this garbage happen to your book with saddle stitching. So, and again, it's not like the first edition books were that perfect either. Like if you take a look right here, you see how it's kind of like I can't open it fully because this basically is falling apart at the seams right here. You know, again, first printing, what are you going to do, right? They didn't, you know, remember, manga has never really been printed for collectors. They're always printed for, you know, just easy mass consumption. And in this case, by mass consumption, literally read it once and have it fall apart. And it just goes to show you, you know, unfortunately, the problems with I guess publishing companies nowadays. Everybody's trying to find the cheapest possible way to get this to you. So of course they're going to send it to China and get it, you know, printed for like what, $1.24 or something, you know, using slave labor, and then charge you this much for this thing. You know, admittedly, you'll save money over, like, compared to this, which is like $12.95, right, for 3 of them. But you know, it's just, again, my whole point being is, even though this looks cool, do not buy this version of the book. They are garbage. If you have to buy a physical copy, try to buy early first print editions of these. I mean, even the newer print edition, right, because there's less pages, the stress on the binding, the glue right here that you see, is a lot less than in the Viz Big editions, which are a total waste of money. Honestly, the Viz Big editions are retarded anyway, because if you take a look at this, you don't even get like slightly bigger art. Like normally when you do like a big edition, like the Berserk Deluxe editions that I've shown you on my channel, they usually enlarge the book, kind of like omnibuses, how they're enlarged over the standard comic book size, just so you can enjoy the art better, right? You know, the idea is a prestige format, right? This isn't even prestige, it's just junk. It's pure freaking junk. Viz, you are garbage. Your IDW status, freaking, you're dead to me. You're freaking dead to me, man. So pissed. So luckily I have the first edition of this book, so you know I'm not completely hosed. But yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, Vagabond, absolutely recommended if you're in the mood for anything samurai. This is the freaking end-all be-all of samurai stories. It's also a profoundly good manga because the art is just unreal good. Like freaking Takehiko Inoue is just a like legendary mangaka artist. And you know, definitely if you get these versions of the book and you can find them, you know, on eBay, like a big old pack of them, I think you're gonna have a grand old time. And you know, it's just good freaking samurai swashbuckling fun, man. It's great stuff. Freaking Miyamoto Musashi, freaking the shit. Love this character. Yeah, just don't get the Viz Big edition. Anyhow, oh yeah, that reminds me, I totally forgot. I haven't done art on this channel in a while, so I kind of threw this together really fast. I was kind of, you know what I was doing was I was looking at like this cover right here, and I love the coloring effects he did with like the grays and the washes here, and basically the blue hue that kind of goes over all this. With this, I think he did do this with Copics, and I tried to kind of do something like that, and I kind of failed miserably. Also, I'm like basically out of ink for all my Copics, so I didn't know what to do. So this is what happens when you get kind of galaxy brain and start going crazy with your colors, right? You get this weird shit right here. I don't know what the hell I was trying to do when I did this freaking drawing. It's not bad, don't get me wrong. It's just sort of like, what the hell? Like, there's just like openings everywhere. I got to kind of work on my my brush work, is what I'd have to say. But yeah, no, anyway, that's That's the art right there. Have some work to do. Anyhow, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Vagabond, the manga, or the original novel by Eiji Yoshikawa, or my art, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.